The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a sound like thunder. Ambassador Sarah Chen walked through them, her black diplomatic uniform sharp and clean against the rainbow of alien forms that filled the enormous room. Above her, the crystal ceiling stretched up so high it disappeared into shadows. Around her, representatives from 847 different species watched with eyes, sensors, and organs she had no names for. Sarah had been preparing for this moment for 3 years. Earth had been in contact with the galactic community for 50 years now, but humans had never been allowed to join the Galactic Council. They were always told to wait to prove themselves, to show they were ready. Today was supposed to change that. She walked to the center of the chamber where a small platform waited for her. Her footsteps echoed in the silence. Every alien eye was on her as she climbed onto the platform and faced the High Council seats. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," Sarah began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's sound system. "I come before you today as the representative of humanity and Earth. For 50 years, we have worked alongside many of your species. We have traded fairly, shared knowledge, and respected your laws. We have shown that humans can be peaceful neighbors in this galaxy." She paused and looked around the chamber. Some aliens nodded slightly. Others remained perfectly still. The Zephyrians, with their blue-scaled skin and sharp teeth, looked bored. The peaceful ethereal collective members glowed softly with what she hoped was approval. "Today I formally request that humanity be granted membership in the Galactic Council. We have proven our technology by developing faster-than-light travel, without help from any other species. We have shown our commitment to peace by resolving conflicts through diplomacy, rather than war. We have demonstrated our scientific abilities by contributing to joint research projects that have benefited the entire galaxy." Sarah activated a holographic display that showed Earth's achievements over the past 50 years. Images of human cities reaching into space, of terraformed moons, of the great space stations that orbited their home system. She showed the trade agreements they had honored, the scientific discoveries they had shared freely, the times they had helped other species in crisis. "We ask not for special treatment, but for the same rights and responsibilities that all council members share. Humanity is ready to take its place among the civilized species of the galaxy." The chamber fell silent when she finished. Sarah stood straight and waited as the High Council members turned to each other and began speaking in languages that sounded like music, grinding stone and electronic noise. The universal translators worked overtime to convert the dozens of conversations into something she could understand. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, Counselor Vexthak of the Zephyrian hegemony stood up. The massive alien was nearly 3 meters tall with armor-like scales and eyes like black glass. When he spoke, his voice was deep and harsh. "The High Council has considered humanity's request," he said, and Sarah felt her heart start to beat faster. "We have reviewed your species' history and current status. We have examined your technological achievements and your claims of peaceful intentions." Vexthak paused and looked directly at Sarah. "The Council's decision is unanimous. Humanity is denied membership in the Galactic Council." Sarah felt like she had been hit in the stomach, but she kept her face calm. "May I ask the reasons for this decision?" "Gladly," Vexthak said, and there was something that might have been satisfaction in his voice. "Humans are too violent. Your species has never stopped fighting wars among yourselves. Even now, as you stand here asking for membership, there are conflicts on your homeworld. You lack the emotional and social development necessary for civilized governance." Another counselor, this one from the insect-like Crix Confederation, spoke up. "Your species shows concerning psychological patterns. You are unpredictable, aggressive, and primitive. The galaxy has no place for such barbarism." Sarah listened to more reasons. Humans were too young as a spacefaring species. They were too different from established galactic norms. They had not proven themselves worthy of trust. The list went on and on. When the counselors finished speaking, Sarah nodded slowly. "I understand your position," she said quietly. "You have made your decision clear." She looked around the chamber one more time, meeting as many alien gazes as she could. Some looked satisfied. Others seemed uncomfortable. A few actually looked sorry. In that case, Sarah continued, "I have an announcement to make. As of this moment, humanity formally withdraws from all existing agreements with galactic civilization. All human colonies outside the Sol system will be evacuated within 6 months. All trade agreements are terminated immediately. All joint research projects involving human scientists are ended. The chamber erupted in surprised chatter. This was not what they had expected. Usually, rejected species begged for another chance or accepted probationary status. Sarah raised her voice to be heard over the noise. Furthermore, all galactic species currently in human space are requested to leave within 60 days. Any who remain after that time will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. Vexthak laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Typical human drama. You think your tantrums will change our minds? Sarah looked at him with an expression that was perfectly calm and somehow terrible. This is not a tantrum, counselor. This is humanity's formal notice of withdrawal from galactic civilization. We came here hoping to join your community as equals. Since you have made it clear that will never happen, we choose to go our own way. She stepped down from the platform and began walking toward the exit. Just before she reached the doors, she turned back to face the assembled aliens one last time. Oh, and one more thing, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the sudden silence. I would strongly suggest that all galactic military forces stay well away from human space from now on. For your own safety. Vexthak's laugh was even louder this time. Are you threatening the Galactic Council, human? Sarah's smile was cold and sharp. I am giving you advice, counselor. I suggest you take it seriously. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was quiet but somehow more frightening than if she had shouted, Run! With that, she walked out of the chamber, leaving 847 alien species to stare after her in confusion and growing unease. Behind her, the debate began immediately. Some counselors worried that they had made a mistake. The humans had been peaceful for 50 years. They had never attacked another species, never broken an agreement, never shown aggression toward anyone but themselves. Maybe rejection had been too harsh, but Vexthak and his supporters laughed off such concerns. Let them leave, he said. The galaxy will be better off without their primitive violence. If they want to hide in their little corner of space and sulk, let them. We have more important things to worry about than the hurt feelings of an upstart species. Outside the council chamber, Sarah Chen walked to her ship with steady steps. Her face showed nothing of what she was thinking. She had known this might happen. Humanity had been preparing for this possibility for decades. As her ship lifted off from the council world's surface, Sarah activated her secure communicator. The message she sent was brief and used a code that only a few dozen humans in the galaxy understood. The vote was negative. Begin Protocol 7 immediately. Time frame is 6 months for withdrawal, 60 days for evacuation notices. Inform command that Option 0 is now active. Then she sat back in her pilot's chair and watched the stars. The aliens thought they understood humanity. They thought humans were simple, violent, and primitive. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. The galaxy had made its choice. Now humanity would make theirs. 6 months after the rejection, the galaxy began to notice something strange. Humans were leaving just as Ambassador Chen had promised, but they were not leaving quietly. On Kepler 442b, the human mining colony had been extracting rare metals for 30 years. The operation employed 12,000 humans and had been one of the most productive mines in the sector. When the evacuation order came, the colonists packed up their personal belongings and boarded transport ships. Then they activated something that turned the entire mining complex into dust. Not explosions. Not fire. The buildings, the equipment, the massive drilling platforms that had taken decades to build just became fine gray powder that scattered in the wind. Even the underground tunnels were filled with the same dust. Nothing remained that could be studied or used by anyone else. The same thing happened at every human installation across the galaxy. Research stations that had been studying pulsars for decades were reduced to atoms. Agricultural colonies that had been growing food for both humans and aliens left behind empty worlds where nothing could grow. Trading posts became holes in the ground. The scientific community was baffled. What kind of weapon could destroy matter so completely? Why would humans destroy their own property instead of selling it or leaving it behind? The technology required for such thorough destruction was beyond anything in the galactic databases. Dr. Kess of the Ethereal Collective was one of the few scientists who had studied humans extensively. She presented her concerns to a closed session of the Science Council. The pattern suggests they planned this long before the rejection, she said, her crystalline form glowing with worry. Every single human installation has been destroyed in exactly the same way. This level of coordination requires years of preparation. The Science Council reviewed the data. In 6 months, over 400 human colonies, stations, and outposts had been evacuated and destroyed. Not one single piece of human technology had been left behind for study. It was as if humanity had never existed outside their home system. Perhaps they are simply being spiteful, suggested Counselor Threx of the Crix Confederation. Humans are known for emotional reactions, but Dr. Kess shook her head. No, this is not spite. This is strategy. They do not want us to learn from their technology. Meanwhile, attempts to contact Earth directly had failed completely. The Sol system had gone dark just weeks after the Council vote. No communications came from human space. Ships that approached the system found nothing but empty space where Earth's sun should be. Long-range sensors detected strange energy readings from the direction of Sol, but the signals made no sense. They showed power outputs that should have torn planets apart, and gravitational distortions that defied physics. Some readings suggested massive construction projects, but construction of what? Most disturbing of all, the few galactic citizens who had been living in human space had simply vanished. Not killed, not expelled, just gone. Ships that had been trading in the Sol system never returned. Diplomatic messages sent to Earth received no response. Counselor Zarath of the Ethereal Collective was the first to suggest that perhaps the Council had made an error. She brought her concerns to a private meeting with other moderate counselors. The humans were peaceful for 50 years, she said, her light flickering with uncertainty. They never attacked any galactic species. They honored every agreement they made. Their only wars were with themselves, and even those stopped decades ago. Counselor Brixtar of the Peaceful Commerce Union agreed. Their trade practices were more honest than most species we work with. They shared scientific discoveries freely. They helped during the Vegan crisis without asking for anything in return. They helped evacuate 3 million Deltans when their sun went unstable, added another counselor. They used their own ships and supplies, and they never asked for payment. But when these concerns were brought to the full council, Vexthak and his supporters dismissed them. Sentiment, Vexthak growled. The humans are showing their true nature now. Look how they destroy everything rather than share it. This proves they were never worthy of membership. The Draconian Empire's representatives agreed. Good riddance to a primitive species. If they want to hide in their system and play with their toys, let them. The galaxy is better without them. As the months passed, however, the mystery of human space deepened. Advanced probe ships sent toward the Sol system simply disappeared. They would send regular reports until they reached a certain distance from Earth's sun, and then nothing. No explosion, no final transmission, just silence. The disappearances started happening to other ships too. Any vessel that came within 50 light-years of human space and showed military capabilities would vanish without trace. Civilian ships were left alone, but anything with weapons or military sensors never returned. This pattern worried the more intelligent members of the galactic community. Dr. Kess published a paper suggesting that humans had developed some kind of advanced defensive technology, but her theories were dismissed by most scientists as impossible. The humans barely understood quantum mechanics when they left, scoffed Professor Velkun of the Zephyrian Science Institute. They could not have advanced so far so quickly. But Dr. Kess had been studying human history and psychology for decades. She knew something that the others did not want to admit. Humans were different from every other species in the galaxy in one crucial way. They got stronger under pressure. Every other species in the galaxy had evolved to avoid conflict, to find peaceful solutions, to cooperate and share resources. Humans were the only species that seemed to thrive on competition and challenge. Their greatest technological advances had come during their wars. Their most innovative thinking happened when they were threatened. We made a mistake, Dr. Kess told her research team. We judged them by our standards, not theirs. We thought their conflicts made them weak, but conflict is what makes them strong. Her assistant, a young ethereal named Luxara, was confused. But surely they cannot have advanced so far in just 6 months. Dr. Kess's light dimmed with worry. What if they were already advanced? What if they were hiding their true capabilities for 50 years? What if they were studying us while we thought we were studying them? The idea was terrifying. If humans had been pretending to be primitive while secretly developing advanced technology, what were they capable of now? What had they been building during their 50 years of contact with galactic civilization? Reports from the edge of human space became more disturbing. Ships that came too close reported seeing impossible things before they disappeared. Structures that could not exist according to known physics. Energy patterns that suggested technology beyond anything in the galactic databases. The Andromedans, whose home system was closest to human space, began moving their populations away from the border. They would not say why, but their ships left in such hurry that they abandoned colonies that had existed for centuries. When questioned, the Andromedan ambassador would only say, "We have seen what builds in the darkness near Earth. We choose not to be near it when it wakes." This caused panic among the border species. If the Andromedans, who had some of the most advanced sensor technology in the galaxy, were afraid enough to abandon their homes, what did they know that others did not? Vexthak tried to maintain order by insisting that humans were no threat. "They are hiding because they are weak," he declared. "If they had any real power, they would have used it by now." But privately, even some of his supporters were beginning to worry. The complete disappearance of human space, the mysterious destructions, the vanishing ships, all suggested that something very dangerous was happening in the Sol system. Dr. Kess published one final paper before her research was classified by the Science Council. In it, she made a prediction that would prove terrifyingly accurate. Humanity spent 50 years learning everything they could about galactic technology, politics, and military capabilities. They mapped our weaknesses while hiding their strengths. They prepared for rejection because they knew it would come. Now they are building something in secret, and when they are ready, they will show us what they have learned. The galaxy should prepare for contact with a species that has weaponized innovation itself. The paper was suppressed within hours of publication, but copies had already spread throughout the scientific community. Those who read it began to understand that the Council had not just rejected humanity from membership. They had created an enemy more dangerous than anything the galaxy had ever faced. 2 years had passed since humanity withdrew from galactic civilization. The mystery of what they were doing in their hidden system had become a source of constant debate among scientists and politicians. Some claimed humans were probably extinct, having destroyed themselves with their own weapons. Others worried they were building something terrible in secret. The answer came on a Tuesday morning, Galactic Standard Time, in the most shocking way possible. Kepler Station was gone, not destroyed in battle, not damaged by accident, gone, as if it had never existed at all. Admiral Krextar of the Draconian Empire was in his command center when the report started coming in. Kepler Station was their most powerful military installation, a massive fortress that housed 100,000 Draconian soldiers and enough weapons to destroy entire planets. It orbited a lifeless moon in the Vega system, far from any human territory. "Sir," his communications officer reported, his voice shaking, "we have lost contact with Kepler Station." Krextar was not immediately worried. Space was dangerous and communication problems happened sometimes. "When did we last hear from them?" 17 minutes ago, sir. They were sending their regular status report. Everything was normal. Send a probe to check on them. The probe reached the Vega system an hour later. What it found made no sense. Where Kepler Station should have been, there was nothing but empty space. Not debris from an explosion, not the remains of a battle, just emptiness. The probe must be malfunctioning, Krextar decided. Send a scout ship. The scout ship arrived 6 hours later with a crew of 20 trained observers. They confirmed what the probe had found. Kepler Station was simply not there anymore. But there was something else, something that made the scout ship's captain request immediate backup. The moon that Kepler Station had been orbiting now had a perfectly round crater, 3 kilometers wide and 3 kilometers deep. The crater was so perfect it looked like it had been carved with a giant spoon. The edges were smooth as glass and the bottom was perfectly flat. "That's impossible," Krextar said when he saw the images. Nothing could create a crater like that. But his science officer had even more disturbing news. "Sir, our sensors show that the crater was created at exactly the same time Kepler Station disappeared. And there's something else. We're detecting traces of Draconian DNA at the bottom of the crater." Before Krextar could respond to this information, every communication system in the Draconian fleet activated at once. The message that came through was brief and was broadcast on every frequency simultaneously. Warning delivered. 846 more demonstrations available upon request. Recommend immediate evacuation of all military assets within 50 light-years of human space. This message will not be repeated. The voice was calm, pleasant, and spoke perfect Draconian. It was also completely untraceable. The signal seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Krextar stared at the communication panel in shock. 846 more demonstrations. That was exactly the number of military installations the Draconian Empire operated. Someone had been counting. "Sir," his tactical officer said quietly, "how did they know our exact number of bases?" That was an excellent question. The location and number of Draconian military installations was classified information known only to the highest levels of command. Yet somehow, humans had counted every single one. News of Kepler Station's disappearance spread through the galaxy within hours. The galactic media called it everything from a hoax to an act of unknown aliens. But the military leaders of every species understood exactly what had happened. Humanity had just demonstrated that they could make any target disappear without warning, without detection, and without leaving evidence. They had chosen the most powerful military installation of their most vocal opponents and erased it from existence. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was chaos. Representatives shouted in dozens of languages while universal translators struggled to keep up. Vexthak stood at the center of the storm, trying to maintain that this was some kind of trick. "Humans do not have this kind of technology," he insisted. "This must be the work of some other species trying to make us afraid." But Dr. Kess, who had been studying humans for decades, presented evidence that made the council fall silent. "I have analyzed the communication," she said. The signal was sent simultaneously from over 400 different points in space. Not relay stations, not ships, but individual transmission sources that appeared for exactly the duration of the message and then vanished. She activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. Red dots appeared scattered across the star map, marking where the signals had originated. "They sent this message from inside our space. They have assets positioned throughout the galaxy that we cannot detect." The implications were terrifying. If humans could place undetectable transmitters anywhere they wanted, what else could they place? Weapons? Sensors? Entire fleets? Councillor Brixtar of the Peaceful Commerce Union was the first to suggest negotiation. "Perhaps we should attempt to contact them." This show of force was clearly meant as a warning, not an attack. But Vexthak would not hear of it. "We do not negotiate with terrorists. If humans want a war, the Draconian Empire will give them one." That was exactly what Admiral Krextar was thinking. The destruction of Kepler Station was an act of war that could not go unanswered. Within hours, he had assembled the largest fleet in Draconian history. 5,000 warships, including their most powerful dreadnoughts, set course for human space. "We will show these primitives what real military power looks like," Krextar announced to his fleet commanders. "They may have some new stealth technology, but they cannot hide from an entire battle fleet." The Draconian Armada arrived at the edge of the Sol system 3 days later. What they found confused them immediately. According to all their sensors, the system was empty. Stars showed where they should be, but the planets, including Earth itself, did not appear on any scan. "Impossible," Krextar muttered. "Planets cannot just disappear." His science officer ran every test he could think of. "Sir, according to our instruments, there is nothing here but empty space. But the gravitational readings suggest that all the planets are still present. We just cannot see them." Krextar made a decision that he would regret for the rest of his life. "If we cannot see them, we will force them to reveal themselves. All ships target the area where Earth should be. Fire everything." 5,000 Draconian warships opened fire at once. Energy beams that could melt asteroids, missiles that could crack moons, and plasma cannons that could boil oceans all focused on the empty space where Earth was supposed to be. The weapons simply vanished. Every blast, every missile, every energy beam disappeared the moment it reached a certain point in space. It was as if they were firing into a hole in reality itself. For several minutes, the most powerful fleet in galactic history poured enough firepower to destroy entire solar systems into what appeared to be empty space. Nothing happened. No explosions, no impacts, no reactions of any kind. Then, without warning, every ship in the fleet lost power. Not battle damage, not system failures. The ship simply turned off as if someone had thrown a switch. Life support, weapons, engines, communications, even emergency lighting went dark. 5,000 warships became silent, drifting hulks in the space around Earth's sun. In the growing cold and darkness, as backup life support systems tried to compensate for the total power failure, A single message appeared on every ship's emergency display. The text glowed softly in the darkness, providing the only light on any of the ships. Second warning delivered. You have 72 hours to leave this system. After that time, ships remaining will be considered abandoned property and disposed of accordingly. Krextar sat in his command chair, breathing the increasingly stale air, and tried to understand what had happened to his fleet. Every ship was functionally intact. No damage had been done to any system. Everything had simply been turned off like a parent taking away a child's toy. How? He whispered in the darkness.
How is this possible?
Emergency power systems activated after an hour, providing minimal life support and communication. The fleet's engineering teams worked frantically to restore main power, but nothing they tried worked. The ship's quantum reactors would not restart. The fusion generators would not respond to any command. Even simple battery systems refused to function. It was as if the fundamental laws of physics had been changed for every draconian ship. Energy simply would not flow through their systems no matter what the engineers tried. "Sir," his communications officer reported over the emergency radio, "I'm receiving reports from the entire fleet. Every ship has experienced identical power failures. All attempts to restore main power have failed." Krextar closed his eyes and tried to think. His fleet was the most advanced military force in the galaxy. The technology that powered these ships was beyond the understanding of most species, yet humans had turned it all off without effort, without apparent weapons, without even revealing themselves. "Begin evacuation procedures," he ordered quietly. "All personnel to escape pods." "We're leaving." "Sir, the escape pods don't have enough power for faster-than-light travel. We'll be stranded." Krextar nodded grimly. Admiral Krexter stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council, his proud bearing broken. The most decorated military commander in Draconian history looked like he had aged a decade in the few weeks since his fleet's encounter with humanity. "Honored counselors," he began, his voice hoarse with exhaustion and fear. "I must report that the Draconian Empire's military response to humanity has failed completely." The chamber fell silent. Even Vexthak, who had been demanding military action, stopped his constant movement and listened. "They did not destroy our ships," Krextar continued. "They did not damage them. They did not even fight us. They simply turned them off, like a parent taking away a child's toy when the child misbehaves." He activated a holographic display showing technical readouts from his fleet. "Our quantum reactors generate power by manipulating the fundamental forces of the universe. This technology has worked reliably for over 1,000 years, but in human space it simply stopped working. Not broken, not damaged, just prevented from functioning." Dr. Yelan Kess of the Ethereal Collective had been studying the technical data since the fleet's return. Her analysis was even more disturbing than the Admiral's report. "The implications go far beyond military defeat," she said, her crystalline form glowing with anxiety. "The humans demonstrated control over the basic laws of physics. They can decide what works and what doesn't in their presence." She displayed more technical information. "Every technology we understand relies on consistent physical laws. Gravity, electromagnetism, nuclear forces, quantum mechanics. The humans showed they can override these laws at will." Counselor Threx of the Krix Confederation, who had supported the military response, spoke up nervously. "But surely this was some kind of localized effect. Perhaps they have powerful jamming technology." Dr. Kess shook her head. "No, Counselor. Jamming works by interfering with signals or energy patterns. This was different. The ship's own internal power generation stopped working. The fundamental particles inside their reactors refused to behave according to the laws of physics. The true scope of what humanity had done began to sink in around the chamber. They had not just defeated a military fleet. They had demonstrated mastery over the forces that governed reality itself. But Dr. Kess was not finished with her analysis. She had spent the last 3 years studying every piece of information about humanity that she could find, and she had reached conclusions that would have seemed impossible before. "Honored counselors, I believe we fundamentally misunderstood humanity from the beginning. We saw their conflicts with each other as evidence of primitive aggression. We were wrong." She activated another display, this one showing human historical data. Every human war, every conflict, every competition drove them to innovate beyond what should have been possible. They do not fight for territory or resources like other species. They fight to become stronger. The display showed human technological advancement over their history. The pattern was clear and terrifying. Every major advance in human civilization had come during or immediately after periods of conflict. They developed flight during a global war. They reached space during a competition between rival nations. They created faster-than-light travel, while their planet was divided into competing factions. Conflict is not a weakness in human society. It is their primary method of evolution. Vexithak finally found his voice. That is impossible. No species can advance that rapidly through warfare. It would destroy them. Not if they are designed for it, Dr. Kess replied. Every other species in the galaxy evolved to avoid conflict, to find peaceful solutions, to cooperate for survival. Humans evolved to thrive on competition and challenge. They are the only species that get stronger under pressure. She brought up more data, this time showing the 50 years of human contact with galactic civilization. While we thought we were observing primitive newcomers, they were studying us. Every trade agreement taught them about our economy. Every joint research project showed them our technology. Every diplomatic contact revealed our political weaknesses. The pattern became clear as Dr. Kess explained it. Humans had not been trying to integrate with galactic civilization. They had been systematically learning everything they could about it while carefully hiding their own capabilities. The peaceful colony ships we thought were carrying families to new worlds. Many were carrying research teams to study galactic technology. The mining operations we thought were extracting raw materials. They were testing planetary engineering techniques. The scientific cooperation we thought was mutual. They were learning our weaknesses. Admiral Krextar nodded grimly. My intelligence officers have confirmed this. During our encounter, they demonstrated knowledge of every draconian military installation, every ship design, every tactical doctrine. They knew our capabilities better than we did. Dr. Kess continued her presentation. Most disturbing of all, they have been developing their technology far beyond what they showed us. Analysis of the power disruption suggests they have moved beyond manipulating matter and energy. They are now manipulating the fundamental forces that govern reality. She paused and looked around the chamber. In simple terms, honored counselors, humanity has learned to rewrite the laws of physics. The chamber erupted in panicked discussion. Representatives from hundreds of species spoke at once, their voices creating a cacophony of fear and disbelief. Counselor Zarath of the Ethereal Collective tried to restore order. Dr. Kess, you are suggesting that humans have developed godlike powers. Surely this is an exaggeration. I wish it were, Dr. Kess replied, but the evidence is clear. They can make objects disappear without trace. They can disable technology by preventing the laws of physics from working normally. They can hide entire solar systems from detection. These are not advanced technologies. These are abilities that transcend technology entirely. She activated one final display, showing intercepted data fragments that Galactic Intelligence Services had managed to gather. We have detected references to something called Project Prometheus in leaked human communications. The details are classified beyond our ability to decode, but the few fragments we can read suggest they are working on something that makes their current demonstrations look primitive. The data showed energy readings from human space that defied all understanding. Power outputs that should have torn solar systems apart. Gravitational distortions that suggested they were manipulating space-time itself. Construction projects that appeared to be taking place in dimensions that should not exist. What are they building? Whispered Counselor Brickstar. We do not know, Dr. Kess admitted. But whatever it is, it requires technology so advanced that we cannot even understand the sensor readings. Admiral Krextar stepped forward again. There is one more thing the Council must know. During our encounter, my science officers detected communication signals coming from human space. The signals were directed toward empty space far outside our galaxy. The implications of this statement hit the chamber like a physical blow. If humans were communicating with something outside the galaxy, what were they talking to? You are suggesting they have made contact with extragalactic civilizations? Vexthak asked, his voice barely a whisper. Or something worse, Krextar replied. The signals did not match any known communication protocols. They were not even directed toward any known star systems. Whatever they were talking to exists in the void between galaxies. Dr. Kess nodded solemnly. This matches our analysis of human psychology. They are not content to dominate this galaxy. They are already looking beyond it. making contact with entities or civilizations that we cannot even imagine. The chamber fell silent as the full scope of humanity's advancement became clear. They had not just rejected galactic civilization, they had surpassed it so completely that they were now operating on a level that other species could not comprehend. "What do we do?" asked a small voice from the back of the chamber. Dr. Kess looked around at the assembled representatives of 847 species, all of whom were now united in their fear of the one species they had rejected. "We pray that they remain benevolent," she said quietly, "because if humanity decides that the galaxy is a threat to their development, they have the power to end galactic civilization with a thought." As if summoned by her words, every communication system in the chamber activated simultaneously. A message appeared on screens throughout the room, written in the native language of every species present. "Greetings, former colleagues. We have completed our preparations and are ready to discuss the future. Please prepare for formal contact in 30 standard days. We suggest you choose your representatives carefully." The message was signed simply, "The Human Collective." For the first time in galactic history, 847 different species sat in complete terrified silence. 30 days after the message, Ambassador Sarah Chen appeared on the screens of every device in the galaxy simultaneously. She looked exactly as she had 3 years earlier, when the Council had rejected humanity's membership, but now she stood in a place that defied understanding. Behind her stretched what appeared to be a massive space station, but its architecture seemed to bend space itself. Corridors curved in directions that should not exist. Surfaces reflected lights that came from no visible source. The structure appeared to be built from materials that changed color and texture as the viewer watched. "Greetings, former colleagues," Sarah said, her voice calm and pleasant. "As promised, we have completed our preparations and are ready to discuss the future relationship between humanity and galactic civilization." The emergency session of the Galactic Council watched in stunned silence. Sarah's image was appearing not just on their official communication systems, but on every screen, every display, every electronic device throughout their space. She was broadcasting to every citizen of every species simultaneously. "During our isolation, humanity has made certain advances that change the balance of power in this galaxy," Sarah continued. "We felt it was important to demonstrate these advances before beginning negotiations, so there would be no misunderstandings about the current situation." She gestured, and the view behind her changed to show what appeared to be a star map of the galaxy. But this was not like any star map the Council had seen before. It showed not just the positions of stars and planets, but the real-time locations of every ship, every station, every installation operated by galactic civilization. As you can see, we have maintained detailed observation of galactic activities during our withdrawal. We know the location of every military asset, every government facility, every research station operated by all member species. Vexthak leaned forward in his seat, his scaled hands gripping the armrests. "This is impossible. No sensor network could track everything in the galaxy." Sarah smiled slightly as if she had heard his comment. "Counselor Vexthak raises an interesting point about sensor networks. You are correct that traditional sensors could not accomplish this level of surveillance. Fortunately, humanity no longer relies on traditional technology." The star map zoomed in to show the Zephyrian home system in perfect detail. Every ship in orbit, every defensive platform, every civilian transport was visible and labeled. Real-time data showed their power levels, their weapon status, and even the names of their commanding officers. "We have moved beyond the limitations of matter-based technology," Sarah explained. "Our current systems operate by directly manipulating the fundamental forces that govern reality. Distance, time, and physical barriers are no longer meaningful constraints." Dr. Kess watched the demonstration with growing terror. The level of surveillance Sarah was displaying suggested that humanity could observe anything, anywhere, at any time. No military strategy, no secret research, no private communication would be hidden from them. Sarah continued her presentation. "We are prepared to offer galactic civilization a choice regarding future relations. The terms are quite simple." A new display appeared behind her, showing what looked like a formal treaty written in the languages of all galactic species. "Humanity will not interfere with the internal affairs of galactic civilization. We will not claim territory outside our home system. We will not wage war on member species or attempt to conquer any part of the galaxy. We want nothing that galactic civilization has to offer. Counselor Brickstar felt a moment of hope. Perhaps humanity would be reasonable after all. In exchange, Sarah continued, galactic civilization will formally recognize humanity as a sovereign power with rights equal to the Galactic Council itself. You will not attempt to interfere with human activities or claim authority over human space. You will not attempt to study or reverse engineer human technology. Most importantly, you will not threaten or attack human interests. She paused and looked directly into the camera, as if she could see each individual counselor. Violations of these terms will result in appropriate responses. Admiral Krekstar knew exactly what those appropriate responses would look like. His fleet was still recovering from their encounter with human power. We understand that some species may find these terms difficult to accept, Sarah said. Therefore, we are prepared to provide a demonstration of what appropriate responses might involve. The view changed again, this time showing the Draconian Empire's primary weapons manufacturing system. Hundreds of orbital factories that produced the most advanced military equipment in the galaxy were visible in perfect detail. Every military asset belonging to the Draconian Empire will now undergo a small modification, Sarah announced. The factories disappeared from the screen. Not destroyed, not damaged, simply gone. In their place, the cameras showed something impossible. Every weapon production facility had been replaced with vast gardens of flowering plants. Beautiful, colorful flowers that bloomed in the vacuum of space without any life support. The council chamber erupted in shocked voices. Vexthak was on his feet, roaring in fury and disbelief. You cannot destroy our military industry. This is an act of war! But Sarah's next words silenced him completely. Counselor Vexthak, please check your personal sidearm. With trembling hands, Vexthak reached for the energy weapon he always carried. Instead of the familiar metal and electronics, his fingers closed around the stem of a flower. A beautiful blue rose had replaced his weapon. Around the chamber, other military representatives were making the same discovery. Every weapon they carried, from personal sidearms to ceremonial swords, had become flowers. This modification has been applied to every weapon system operated by the Draconian Empire, Sarah explained calmly. From personal weapons to planet-killer dreadnoughts, all have been converted to flowering plants. They are quite beautiful and completely harmless. She paused to let this sink in. This change is permanent and irreversible. Any attempt to build new weapons will result in the same conversion. The Draconian Empire is now officially a pacifist civilization. Admiral Krekstar stared at the flower that had been his command staff and understood that his military career was over. His entire species' military tradition had been ended with a gesture. This demonstration serves two purposes, Sarah continued. First, it shows that humanity can end any military threat without causing loss of life. Second, it provides the galaxy with a clear example of what happens to those who choose aggression over cooperation. The treaty terms appeared on screen again. The choice before galactic civilization is simple. Accept these terms and continue to exist as you have for millennia. Reject them, and face the same conversion to pacifism that the Draconian Empire has experienced. Ignore them, and discover what other modifications we might implement. Counselor Zareth of the Ethereal Collective was the first to find her voice. Ambassador Chen, surely these terms can be negotiated. Some compromise can be reached. Sarah shook her head. These are not negotiations, Counselor. These are the terms under which humanity is willing to coexist with galactic civilization. You have 6 months to formally ratify the treaty. After that time, we will assume that any species that has not agreed is choosing the path of conflict. Dr. Kess understood the implication immediately. 6 months to accept humanity's terms or be forcibly converted to pacifism like the Draconians. What if we choose to fight? Asked a representative from the warrior caste of Rigel. Sarah's smile was gentle but terrifying. Counselor, you have seen what humanity can do. We can rewrite the laws of physics at will. We can modify matter and energy however we choose. We can observe everything and act anywhere instantly. Fighting us would be like an insect declaring war on a star. The view behind her changed one last time, showing construction activity in deep space far outside the galaxy. Massive structures that dwarfed entire solar systems were taking shape in the void. They were built from materials that reflected impossible colors and geometries that hurt to look at. Humanity has moved beyond the limitations of this galaxy, Sarah explained. We are building something new. something that will allow us to explore realities beyond your current understanding. The galaxy is simply where we started, not where we intend to remain. She looked directly at the camera again. We have no desire to rule over galactic civilization. We have far more interesting projects to pursue, but we will not tolerate interference with our development. The transmission was ending, but Sarah had one final message. The treaty will remain open for ratification for exactly 6 months. Choose wisely. The screens went dark, leaving the Galactic Council in stunned silence. 6 months later, every species in the galaxy had signed the Terra Accords. Ambassador Chen did not attend the ratification ceremony. Humanity had already moved on to their more interesting projects. In the deepest corners of space, sensors occasionally detected impossible energy signatures and structures that defied comprehension. Some scientists theorized that humans were building gateways to other dimensions. Others suggested they were making contact with civilizations from entirely different realities. The galaxy slept peacefully, knowing that somewhere in the Sol system, humanity quietly stood guard,